the Citadel and the frozen pack. He was smiling as he died. A cut smile, lips peeled back by cold and rot, teeth yellow with something that wasn't just decay. His jaw moved like it remembered laughter. Then the hum started. Low, resonant, like a cello string drawn slow and wrong. It shivered up my spine just before the glass cracked. I shouted for the door to seal. Captain Reed was already dragging the tech back, blood blooming on his shoulder like rust in snow. I had 8 seconds to decide whether to trigger the lockdown or open the vault. 8 seconds. I used 3 just staring at the thing on the floor. It wasn't supposed to move. 26 hours earlier, I was standing in the wind outside the Citadel's north gate, watching frost collect on the edges of the reinforced concrete arch. The guards didn't speak. They rarely did unless you made them. I didn't. I'd learned to read silence long before I learned to read words. Pine needles skittered across the asphalt. The air smelled of ozone and something else, like old copper wiring left too long in snow. The kind of smell that gets into your mouth. The kind that suggests something's powered on when it should be dead. The guard scanned my badge, stepped aside. The gate opened without a sound. Inside, the Citadel felt like a bunker built by someone who never believed the war was over. Corridors sloped downward. Walls were a soft matte white, not to soothe, but to reflect light in ways that made shadows seem like intruders. The lights above hummed in a frequency just shy of noticeable, until you were alone and then it pressed in, like tinnitus with intent. Dr. Elena Marks met me at the first checkpoint. She didn't offer a handshake. She never did. Her coat was slate gray, her eyes a shade lighter, and her voice had the clipped precision of someone who'd rehearsed being unflinching. "Mr. Case, walk with me." I did. She didn't look back to check. "I've reviewed your intake. Your clearances are provisionally elevated. You'll be working under my oversight for the duration." Her office was on level B3, 3 turns, 2 ID scans, and a biometric gate later. We entered. It smelled of lacquered wood and lemon cleanser, too clean, like someone afraid of what lingers on fingerprints. "Sit," she said, gesturing to a chair across from her desk. "We'll begin with context." She slid a file across the table. It was unmarked but heavy, the kind of weight that means someone died to keep it sealed. I opened it. The first page was redacted almost to illegibility. The second showed a still frame, a figure seated, back slightly hunched, head tilted just enough to suggest listening. The image was grayscale, but his eyes glowed faintly, not with light, with attention. Is this the entity? Elijah. Designation Ezra. That image was taken during a controlled observation 3 weeks ago. He has not spoken, but he's communicative. What kind of communicative? Marks tapped a folder behind her. "You'll get access to the logs. We've observed mimetic leakage through auditory channels. Harmonics, emotional patterning that doesn't track with standard psych profiles." I nodded slowly. "He hums, among other things." I kept looking at the image. The posture was casual, even childlike. But the angle of the head, too precise, like he knew the camera was there, like he knew I'd be looking. I flipped the page. A notation in the margin caught my eye. Vault 7B, see pup record. Pup? Marks didn't answer right away. She leaned back, fingers steepled. "It's a secondary object, related. Not the focus of your work yet, but related." She hesitated just long enough. "Yes." I let the silence sit. I found that's when people say the true things. She didn't. Instead, she stood. "Come, you'll meet Captain Reed and begin orientation." Captain Mara Reed was waiting in the briefing room 2 levels down. She wore black fatigues and a sidearm that looked custom-etched. Her posture said she'd been military before this, but her eyes didn't scan a room the way soldiers usually did. They scanned people. "You're the reader," she said. "Some call it that. I've read your file. You found a missing girl in Kentucky by watching her father lie on local news. I saw him touch his wrist every time he said her name, like a pulse check." Reed nodded. "Let's hope your instincts hold up in here." We reviewed the first set of observation footage together. The room was dark, the screen large. The first clip showed Ezra seated in a containment room. No furniture except a metal stool. No restraints. He didn't move for 6 minutes. Then, without warning, he began to hum, a low, rising tone that made the speakers buzz. Reed muted it. We've had 3 techs suffer migraines after prolonged exposure. 1 experienced auditory hallucinations. "Have you tried white noise countermeasures?" Marks answered from behind me. "We've tried everything short of sensory deprivation. Nothing sticks." I watched Ezra's face, the way his fingers curled around the stool's edge, the way his foot tapped. 3 beats, pause, 2 beats, a pattern. "He's not humming at random," I said. "No," Marks agreed. "He never is." When the footage ended, Reed stood. "I'll walk you to your quarters." The hall outside was empty. It smelled faintly of coolant and something older, harder to name, like frozen iron. "You've done this before," she said. "Interrogations, yes, not this." She glanced at me. "You ever lose someone?" I hesitated. "Yes." "Then you'll want to be careful. Grief's a frequency he knows how to play." She left me at a metal door marked C17. Inside, the room was Spartan. Bed, desk, small screen, no windows. I unpacked nothing, just sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the wall until the light dimmed itself. That night, I dreamed of frost blooming across a girl's cheek. Her mouth moved, but no sound came. I reached for her, and my hand passed through her like smoke. I woke before dawn, my breath misted in the air. The next morning, Dr. Marks handed me a tablet with the full Ezra dossier. As I read, I underlined phrases: pre-linguistic cognition suspected, disruptive harmonic events, anomalous empathy vectors. One note stood out, a field report, heavily redacted, with a single line left intact. When the creature touched the frozen one, it wept. "Pup." I looked up. "I need to see the vault." Mark shook her head. "That's not your purview. But if they're linked, they are. And that's why the vault stays sealed." I studied her. The way her fingers tightened on the tablet. The way her gaze didn't quite meet mine. "You lost people before," I said. "Everyone here has. But you knew them." She didn't answer, just turned, walked to the door and said, "Your first live observation is in 2 hours. Be ready." Left alone, I stared at the tablet again, at the still image of Ezra's face, the faint glow in his eyes, the way his expression hovered between grief and something else. Not malice, recognition. I remembered being 8. My mother crying in the next room. My father's voice too calm. I'd watched the way his hand kept flexing, like he wanted to hit something, but didn't know what. I'd known something was wrong. But I hadn't spoken, not then. By the time I did, she was gone. I've spent my life reading what people try not to say. And the thing in the cell? It was saying everything. I just had to listen right. The corridor to the observation wing was colder than the rest of the Citadel. Not just temperature, though that too, but colder in the way a morgue is cold, in the way polished steel holds a silence that feels deliberate. The walls hummed faintly with the current that powered the isolation grid. Every 20 feet, a recessed camera pivoted with a soft whir, tracking movement with the indifference of a machine that had seen too much. Dr. Marks walked ahead of me, tablet in hand, boots striking the concrete with clipped rhythm. She didn't speak. I didn't try to fill the silence. A part of me had learned early that quiet held more information than most conversations. We passed 2 security checkpoints, one retina scan, one biometric pad. Captain Reed nodded from the inner station, arms folded, eyes sharp. The kind of woman who could gut a protocol breach without blinking. I gave her a nod. She didn't return it. At the end of the hall, we stopped before a wide, pressure-sealed door. No label, just matte black paint and a faintly recessed control panel. Marks entered her code. "You'll be observed," she said. "Any deviation from script, I cut the feed and extraction comes in. Understood?" "I'm not here to provoke him." "No, you're here to hear him. But if he starts to transmit, I'll disengage." She studied me a moment longer, then tapped the panel. The door slid open with a hiss. The chamber was glass-walled on 3 sides, ceiling to floor, triple-layered with embedded dampeners. The far wall was solid steel. A single table sat in the center, bolted to the floor. 2 chairs, both weighted, one occupied. Ezra. He sat still, hands resting palm down on the metal surface. No restraints. He didn't need them. His size alone was a kind of containment. 7 feet, maybe more, with shoulders that looked carved from glacier stone. Skin pale, almost translucent, veins like ink threads beneath. His hair hung in matted cords, dark with a sheen of frost that didn't melt. Eyes closed, breathing slow. But the hum was there, low, subsonic. A bass resonance you didn't hear so much as feel in your sternum. Instruments in the observation suite reported minor data corruption when it peaked. Some of the staff called it the thaw note. I felt it now, vibrating against my ribs. I stepped into the chamber, the door sealed behind me. Ezra didn't move. I took the chair opposite him, careful to keep my posture open. No crossed arms, no sudden shifts. I'd sat across from war criminals, cult leaders, broken men with too much blood on their hands. None of them had felt like this. The hum deepened. I looked up. His eyes opened. They weren't eyes, not in the human sense. No iris, no white. Just a pale, liquid glow like moonlight caught in water. He tilted his head slightly, as if adjusting to a frequency only he could hear. "Ezra," I said, voice even. He blinked slowly. No recognition, no hostility, just attention, a kind of waiting. "My name is Daniel. I'm here to talk." A pause. Then he inhaled. Not a breath. An intake like drawing in scent, memory, temperature. The hum shifted, rising a half step. My vision shimmered at the edges. "I'm not here to hurt you," I said, "or to trick you. I just want to understand." His hands curled slightly on the table. Fingernails, thick, yellowed, almost claw-like, tapped twice. Sound and scent. Pine resin, wet stone, a sharp metallic note like blood on snow. I flinched. The images came next. Not visuals, impressions. A circle of dark trees, a howl rising beneath a red sky, the crunch of bone under weight, grief, vast and ancient, folding in on itself like ice under pressure. I steadied my breathing. "Is this your home?" I asked quietly. "The place you remember?" Ezra tilted his head again. Then he leaned forward, just slightly, and exhaled. Frost bloomed across the metal table. Behind the glass, I saw Marks shift. Her lips moved, probably relaying a caution to Reed. I didn't move. "You lost someone," I said. The hum dropped into a lower register. I felt it in my teeth. Ezra's lips parted. When he spoke, it wasn't speech, it was echo. Fragmented syllables caught in the vibration. Pack. A single word. Carried on resonance rather than tone. Then, gone. I nodded slowly. Pup. A stillness fell over him, so complete it was like the world paused to listen. His hands lifted from the table, hovering mid-air as if weightless. The hum ceased. Then, in a whisper not his own, small one, cold. The scent changed, burnt hair, wet fur, the coppery tang of fear. My throat tightened. Somewhere in the chamber's systems, a monitor chirped warning. Ezra's pupils contracted briefly, an almost human flicker. You remember him, I said. You feel his absence. Ezra leaned closer. I didn't retreat. Bring, he said. Him. Marks's voice snapped in over the intercom. Case, step back, now. I held up a hand but didn't break eye contact. You want him here. Ezra's eyes glowed faintly brighter. Frozen, but not lost. A pause, then softer. I remember warmth. I swallowed hard. Where did you come from, Ezra? The hum returned, softer now, layered. Not just sound. Vibration. Emotion. It slid under my skin like memory. A cave, a howl. The crunch of ice breaking. The feeling of teeth in your side, yours or someone else's, it didn't matter. Hunger, old and pure. Before words, Ezra whispered. The images came faster now. A pack moving across snow, great shapes blurred by storm. A child's laugh, then silence. Then the low, endless sleep beneath frost. He reached toward me. The air between us shimmered. I didn't move, but my vision blurred. My breath caught. I was 8 again, cold linoleum under my feet. My mother's shape in the doorway blurred by tears. My father's voice, too calm. The smell of burnt toast and something sour, milk gone bad. Then it was gone. I blinked. Ezra's hand hovered inches above mine. Not touching, just waiting. Bring him, he said again. He is the anchor. I looked at him. Really looked. Not a monster. Not a man. Something older than either. A creature shaped by memory, loss, and the ache of something forgotten. I don't make those decisions. Ezra's expression didn't change. But the hum shifted again. A minor key. A disappointment that wasn't anger, just inevitability. Then he sat back. The connection broke like a dropped thread. I stood slowly. Behind the glass, Marks gestured. The door hissed open. I walked out without looking back. In the debrief suite, Marks handed me a bottle of water. I took it without speaking. She watched me for a moment. You stayed in longer than protocol allows. I needed to hear him. You let him touch the resonance line. He didn't touch me. You don't know what he did. I drank. The water tasted faintly of metal. She crossed her arms. What did he say? I looked at her. He wants Pup. Her jaw tightened. He said Pup isn't lost, just frozen. And he's the anchor. Marks didn't speak for a moment. Then, that's consistent with prior events. But the language is new. He's adapting. Or remembering. I nodded. He's not lying. He doesn't know how. Or he's playing you. I looked down at my hands. They were shaking. I saw things, I said, not just images. Memories. Mine. He pulled something out of me. Marks's voice dropped. That's what he does. He mirrors grief, amplifies it, makes it beautiful so you don't see the hook until it's in your throat. I looked up. Then why are we talking to him at all? Because whatever he is, he's a vector, a carrier of something older than language. If we can map the mimetic structure, he's a person, I said. No, he's a system, a pattern. The body is incidental. The grief is the delivery mechanism. I let the silence settle. Then, he asked me to bring Pup. She looked away. You knew he would, I said. Yes. Then why not destroy it? Marks didn't answer. I leaned forward. You think there's a chance that if we bring Pup, he'll stabilize? That maybe he's not a threat? I think, she said slowly, that we don't understand what we're dealing with. And until we do, we don't move anything. I stood. He's not going to wait. She looked at me then, really looked. No, she said, but we will. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing the hum, not in my ears, in my bones, a vibration that echoed when I lay still, a memory that wasn't mine. Snow, blood, the press of fur against my side, a howl that rose and never ended. I dreamed of Pup, not as an artifact, as a living thing, eyes wide, breath misting in the cold, waiting. When I woke, my breath fogged in the air again. The temperature gauge read 72 degrees. I didn't tell anyone. I just sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the wall. Outside, the wind howled like something trying to remember its name. Pack and ice. The morning found me in Dr. Marks's office, blinking under the sterile fluorescence, coffee cooling in my hand. She stood by the display wall, arms folded, eyes scanning a sequence of thermal overlays that pulsed slow red and blue. Her expression was unreadable, except for the way her thumb tapped against her opposite elbow, a small, irregular rhythm I'd learned to recognize as unease. I assume you didn't sleep, she said without turning. Define sleep. REM cycles, dreams, restoration. I sipped the coffee. I dreamed. That count? She turned at that. What kind? I thought of the howl, the mist, the pressure of cold fur. Residual. From the last session. Marks narrowed her eyes. You're still feeling the harmonic? It's not a sound, I said. It's not even a thought. It's more like a pressure, like altitude, like memory trying to become muscle. She looked back at the overlay, tapped a panel, and the image shifted. Ezra's containment room viewed in the infrared. His outline pulsed faintly, like a heat signature underwater. We've isolated 3 distinct frequency clusters, she said. Each one corresponds to a different behavioral state. Passive resonance, active lure, and something we're calling echo bleed. I raised an eyebrow. Bleed? It leaks, she said. Into recordings, into sensory memory, into sleep. I didn't ask how she knew that. Her eyes told me enough. She tapped again, and a second image appeared. This one, a magnified scan of what looked like a torn scrap of hide, translucent and fibrous under polarized light. This was recovered from Ezra's flank during the initial breach. It wasn't a wound, it was a shedding. I stepped closer. The material refracted light oddly, like frost on glass. Within it, I could see embedded fragments, crystalline structures, hairline fractures forming symmetrical patterns. Elena, I said quietly, this isn't biological. No, she said, it's not. Not entirely. She brought up a data feed, isotopic analysis, composition breakdowns, trace elements. There were markers I recognized, collagen, keratin, but threaded through them were anomalies. Isotopes not typically found in terrestrial life, let alone human tissue. One in particular caught my eye, oxygen-17, in ratios consistent with high-latitude glacial cores. You're saying this came from ice? Not just ice, she said. Permafrost. And not from here. I looked at her. Where? She didn't answer. Instead, she walked to her desk and pulled a sealed folder from a locked drawer. When she slid it across the table, I recognized the classification band immediately. Level 6, off books, internal only. I opened it. Inside were photos. Grainy, cold-lit, time-stamped 2 years ago. A dig site in the Russian far north, Yamal Peninsula. The GPS data was accurate. A massive excavation pit. Ice walls laced with veins of blue crystal. Figures in hazmat suits stood around a metal container, its lid half open. Inside was Pup, or what would become Pup. It wasn't whole, just the front half, curled in repose as if frozen mid-step. The fur was matted with ice, but the eyes were open, not blind, not decayed, just watching. They found it intact, I asked. Preserved, she said. No cellular degradation, no desiccation. We ran every test for cryogenic stasis. Nothing matched. It wasn't frozen. Then what was it? She hesitated. Dormant. I flipped to the next page. A scan, vibration analysis taken in situ. There was a pattern of micro-vibrations in the surrounding ice. Faint, rhythmic, almost musical. Heartbeat? I asked. No vasculature, she said. No organ function. But something was transmitting. Low-frequency resonance, subaudible. The ice wasn't the medium, it was the amplifier. I stared at the image. Pup's eyes stared back. Elena, I said, this isn't an artifact. She looked at me, and for once her voice lost its clinical edge. I know. A chime interrupted us. Marks glanced at her wrist console, then tapped the wall. The screen shifted to a secure conference feed. Director Lucian Hale's face appeared, angular, gray-lit, eyes like slits behind rimless glasses. The background behind him was blurred, as always, but I caught a flash of the seal. Department of Anomalous Containment and Counterbiological Threats. Dr. Marks. Mr. Case, he said. Status? Marks straightened. Stable. Subject remains contained. No physical breach since last harmonic flare. We're monitoring residual effects. Hale's gaze shifted to me. You've been close to him. I nodded. Interview protocols were followed. And yet you reported subjective memory distortion. I didn't look away. Yes. He tilted his head. You understand the implications. I do. Then let me be clear, Hale said. We are under directive to extract usable intelligence, not empathy, not reconciliation, not catharsis. Marks interjected. We're not pursuing empathy, sir. We're pursuing signal clarity. The mimetic structure is... I read the reports, Hale said, voice clipped. We need a weaponized understanding, not a therapeutic one. I felt something tighten in my chest. What if that's not possible? I asked. He studied me. Then we contain indefinitely, or terminate. Mark said nothing. I could feel her watching me. Hale continued. There's pressure from oversight. They want actionable data. If that means escalating containment measures. It won't help, I said. Pain doesn't clarify the signal, it distorts it. He's not a transmitter. He's a mirror. Hale's face didn't change. Mirrors can be turned. The feed cut. The room was silent for a long time. Marks exhaled slowly. He's not wrong. They're looking for leverage. I sat down. And Pup? She hesitated. Still sealed. Vault 3, no active resonance since recovery. But the ambient temperature in the containment shell has dropped 3 degrees in the last 48 hours, with no system input. Is that possible? No. I stood and paced to the window. Beyond the glass, the corridor was empty. Lights hummed. Somewhere beneath us, Ezra sat in a room too cold for breath to fog. Somewhere deeper, Pup waited in a sarcophagus of steel and frost. I turned back to her. "Let me see the original footage." Marks raised an eyebrow. "Not the redacted briefings," I said. "The uncut recordings, from Yamal, from the initial containment. I need to see the pattern, not the conclusions." She hesitated, then typed a sequence into her console. A separate panel lit up on the wall. She keyed in a passcode, then stepped back. "You have 90 minutes, she said. "Then it wipes." The footage was raw, helmet cams, environmental mics, telemetry overlays. The excavation was careful, methodical. They hadn't expected to find anything alive. But as the thermal cutters sliced through the ice, instruments began to fail. Batteries drained, radios fuzzed. One by one, the crew reported nausea, vertigo, emotional disorientation. Then the howling started. Not from Pup, from outside. Wind at first. Then something deeper, a pressure in the ice itself, like the glacier was groaning. I fast-forwarded. The moment they breached the sarcophagus, the video stuttered. A harmonic spike hit the audio feed, just a second, but it froze the frame. When it resumed, Pup's eyes were open. No one spoke. No one moved. Then Ezra's voice came through the static. Not through a radio, not from the site. Just a whisper in the audio track. One word. "Home." I paused the feed. Rewound. Played it again. Same place. Same word. The exact harmonic signature I'd heard in the room with Ezra. I pulled up a waveform comparison. Matched it against my interview logs. Identical. Ezra and Pup weren't just connected. They were echoing each other. Across time, across containment, across ice. When the 90-minute countdown hit 0, the panel blinked out. Marks returned. "You saw it?" she asked. I nodded. "They're not separate. They're fragments of something older." She didn't argue. I looked at her. "Why haven't we tried pairing them?" "Because we don't know what they become together. But we know what they are apart. Ezra is deteriorating. Pup is waiting, if they're halves of a system or of a weapon," she said. I didn't respond. She stepped closer. "Daniel, if we're wrong, we don't get a second chance. This isn't just a containment breach risk. This is existential, biological, mimetic. The vectors don't behave like anything we understand. They don't stop at skin. They don't stop at thought." I remembered the dream, the cold, the howl. "They don't stop at death," I said. She looked away. That night, I went back to my quarters and pulled up my private logs. Not the official reports, just my notes. The ones I didn't share. I played the interview footage again. Ezra, sitting still, eyes half-lidded, humming under his breath. A low, resonant tone that vibrated through the speakers like a cello string. I isolated the frequency, ran it against Pup's excavation data. Matched. Then I slowed it. Underneath the hum, there was a second layer, fainter. A kind of rhythm. Not language, not code, but structured. Like a pack call, a signal for return. I sat back, heart pounding. Ezra wasn't singing. He was calling. And Pup, wherever it was beneath the Citadel's vaults, was listening. Vault of secrets. The next morning I found myself in a reinforced elevator descending past the numbered sublevels into territory not listed on any of the Citadel's public schematics. The air turned colder the deeper we went. The kind of cold that felt engineered, not incidental, metallic, precise. Captain Reed stood to my left, one hand resting on the holster at her hip, the other holding a black tablet displaying my temporary access clearance. No small talk, just the hum of old hydraulics and the faint vibration of systems embedded in the walls. Dr. Marks was already waiting when the doors opened. She wore a charcoal lab coat that matched the walls, a surgical mask pulled down around her neck. Her hands were bare. "You'll follow my lead," she said as I stepped out. "No deviations, no interaction with the techs unless I say so." I nodded, but I was already reading the room. The air here had a pressure to it, like walking into a sealed chamber after a decompression. The corridor ahead was low-lit and lined with leaded glass panels, each marked with hazard insignias in faded stenciling. The frost on the inner panes was not uniform. It crept in filigreed patterns like veins or script, shifting ever so slightly as we passed. "This vault was repurposed," Mark said. "It used to house deep cryo for biocontainment. We reinforced the structure after the Siberian breach." The name hung in the air between us. No one talked about the Siberian breach unless they had clearance and a strong stomach. 2 guards stood at the final junction, 1 male, 1 female, both in mat-eye gray armor with pulse rifles held low but ready. Reed gave a tight nod, and they stepped aside. The door to the vault was old steel, 3 feet thick, with a central wheel lock that turned slowly under servo assistance. It opened onto a chamber rimmed in ice mist, the floor gridded with frost-tracked plates. The temperature dropped instantly. My breath fogged. In the center, under a ring of low amber lights, Pup lay curled. At first glance, it could have been taxidermy. Too still. Too perfect. But the longer I looked, the more I noticed. The faint rise and fall of its chest, like the slow-motion tide of something sleeping very deep. Its fur was layered in white and gray, but the strands at the nape shimmered faintly, like mineral veins in rock. Crystalline residue webbed from its paws to the floor. Vapor coiled from its mouth like breath, though the air was too cold for that. It wasn't just alive. It was dreaming. A technician stood off to the side, monitoring a wall of analog dials and digital readouts. She looked exhausted, mid-40s, heavy-lidded, moving like she'd been up 3 shifts straight. Her ID badge read K. Lambert. I caught the subtle tremor in her left hand as she adjusted a dial. "Vitals?" Marks asked. "Unchanged, thermals holding. No movement since 0300, Lambert said, her voice flat with fatigue. "Mimetic saturation?" "Still at baseline. Harmonics under threshold." Marks nodded, then turned to me. "We've only attempted limited exposure, no full sensory streams. But we've prepared a controlled feed for Ezra. Sanitized visuals, no audio, no direct mimetic vectors." "You're using Pup as bait," I said. "We're using it as proof of life. There's a difference." I didn't answer. I stepped closer to the glass, careful not to touch it. Pup didn't stir, but I felt something. Not a sound, not a vibration, a pull, like gravity, like memory. Something old and vast and waiting. The kind of presence you don't hear, you remember. Marks tapped her tablet. "We're going to transmit a still image. No motion, no sound, just a single frame scrubbed for signatures. With it, we'll send a telemetry readout showing stable vitals. Nothing more." "And you think Ezra won't see through that?" "We think he'll see exactly what we want him to see," she said. "Hope." Captain Reed stepped forward, her voice low. "He's been quiet since the last session. No outbursts. No harmonics above passive." "That's not comfort," I said. "No, that's coiling." Marks gave me a sidelong look. "We're not here to speculate on psychology." "Yes," I said, we are." She didn't argue, just gestured to Lambert, who triggered the capture. A shutter clicked. A moment later, the image appeared on a secondary screen. Pup curled in the mist, eyes closed, vapor threading from its muzzle like incense. Marks studied it clinically. "Scrub the vectors. Run it through the mimetic filter stack. Lambert hesitated. Already did, twice, we're clean. Then send it. The technician keyed in a sequence. Somewhere above us, in the observation wing, a secured feed began transmitting. I watched Pup, still unmoving, but I couldn't shake the sense that it was aware. Not of us, not in any simple way, but of something shifting, a thread being tugged. Marks turned to me. We'll give Ezra 20 minutes. If there's a response, we'll log it. If not, we move on. I nodded. I want to be in the room. No, I'm not asking. She crossed her arms. He destabilizes when you're present. We've measured the harmonic spikes. And he stabilizes when he sees me, I said. When he's heard. That's not a trade I'm willing to make. Reed interjected quietly. Let him observe. We can isolate his audio feed. Marks hesitated, then gave a curt nod. Fine, but you don't speak. Not a word. I followed them out of the vault, but not before glancing back. Pup's eye was open, just one. It closed as I turned. We reached the observation bay in silence. The feed was already live. Ezra seated in his restraint field. The image of Pup displayed on a screen in front of him. He didn't move for the first minute. Then he tilted his head. The harmonic started low, barely audible through the dampeners, a kind of hum like tuning forks in deep water. It resonated along the walls. I felt it in my teeth. He reached out, not toward the screen, but toward something unseen. His fingers curled like he was holding a thread. Then he spoke, not in words, but in that same layered rhythm I'd isolated. A call. Mark stiffened. Cut the feed. Wait, I said. She turned. We agreed. Just 5 more seconds. Ezra's eyes closed. His mouth moved without sound. The harmonic shifted. Deeper, more complex. I saw Reed tense. Her hand went to her weapon. Then it stopped. Ezra opened his eyes, looked straight into the camera, and smiled. Marks cut the feed herself. The room fell silent. Even the fan seemed to pause. That was not expected, Reed said. He recognized it, I said. He knows Pup's alive. Marks was already pulling up the logs. We'll analyze the response, but we don't repeat this. I looked at her. We have to. You saw what it did. I saw a containment risk escalate. That signal was structured. He was broadcasting. He was communicating. That's worse, she snapped. Reed cut in. He didn't breach threshold. No mimetic spill. Nothing that touched external systems. Marks shook her head. We got lucky. I stepped back from the console. Or we got through. She didn't respond. We left the observation wing in silence, but I didn't go back to quarters. I asked for another look at the vault systems. Reed granted it. The maintenance corridor that ran adjacent to the vault was narrow, lined with access hatches and junction panels. I passed 2 techs on the way, one asleep in a folding chair, the other reading a dog-eared paperback with a flashlight clipped to his collar. At the core junction, I found the schedule. Next maintenance window, 0600, 48 hours from now. 2 technicians assigned. One of them was Lambert. I checked the logs. She'd been on 6 consecutive shifts. No redundancy, no oversight. It was a crack, a small one. But all it takes is pressure. I returned to my quarters and pulled up the harmonic trace from Ezra's response. Overlaid it with the previous interview logs. Then with the hum from Pup's containment sensors. They matched. Not just in frequency, in rhythm. It wasn't just call and response. It was choreography. Ezra and Pup weren't trying to find each other. They were practicing. I sat back, throat dry. We weren't keeping them apart. We were tuning them. The next morning, Mark summoned me to a secure debrief. Hale was there, seated behind a glass partition, his presence like a knife on the table, unspoken but always seen. "You've been requesting more access," Hale said. "To Ezra, to the vault, to system logs." I nodded. "Yes." "Why?" "Because I think we're on the edge of a breakthrough." He looked at Marks. "Your assessment?" She hesitated. "He's not wrong, but the risk profile is rising. The harmonic crosstalk is becoming more frequent. We're seeing low-level behavioral drift in some of the support staff. Mimetic bleed? Unconfirmed. But stress patterns are aligning with previous incidents." Hale turned back to me. "If Ezra escalates, if Pup reacts, containment fails. You understand that?" "I do." "Then tell me why we shouldn't destroy the creature." I looked at him. "Because it's not just a creature. It's part of something bigger, something old. If we destroy it, we don't stop the signal. We just blind it, and blind things lash out." He studied me. "Do you believe they're conscious?" "I believe they grieve." Marks flinched. Just slightly. I caught it. Hale leaned back. "You got 48 hours. No unsupervised contact. No new exposures. After that, the committee will decide." The meeting ended. Back in my quarters, I reviewed the logs one more time. Ezra's last smile, Pup's eye opening, the harmonics aligning. They were waiting, not for us, for each other. Containment fracture, 3:17 a.m. The Citadel was never silent, not really. There was always the low hum of power through walls, the distant hiss of pressure valves, the groan of steel settling in permafrost. But that hour had a particular texture. Thin, stretched, brittle. The kind of silence that made you aware of your own breathing, the kind that cracked. Technician Laird had been on shift 20 hours. His relief had called out. Food poisoning, they said. He'd been sucking down electrolyte packets and caffeine gum for the last 4. His hands shook as he pulled the access panel on Node 3B, the failsafe relay for Ezra's restraint systems. It was supposed to be a hot swap, minimal impact, 10 minutes tops. His visor readout glitched, a flicker of static in the corner. Then a sound, not loud, not even clear, but present, like a whisper made of metal, or a memory of music. He paused, blinking. The hum in his skull didn't stop when he pulled off the headset. He reached for the bypass key. His fingers hesitated, then moved. The security override was supposed to require dual authentication. Instead, the prompt dissolved into a cascade of symbols, too fast to read. But they left an afterimage, like something seen through heat shimmer. Laird blinked again. His nose was bleeding. He didn't notice. In Ezra's containment gallery, the lights flickered once, then held steady. No alarms, no movement. Just the figure seated cross-legged in the center of the room, head tilted slightly, as if listening to something distant and beautiful. Then he stood. The restraints, fused steel, triple redundant magnetics, biochemical pulse locks, shivered. Not broke. Shivered. Like glass under stress. A low harmonic began to rise. I was halfway down the corridor C2 when the first alert hit. Not a breach, a routing error. Then another. Then a cascade. Maintenance logs blinking red, access anomalies stacking on my terminal like falling dominoes. Marks was already in the lift when I reached the security hub. Her hair was wet. She hadn't slept either. "Systems routing doors incorrectly," she said, clipped. "Backup protocols misfiring. Ezra's cell logged a restraint fluctuation 90 seconds ago." I stared at the feed. Ezra wasn't in frame. "Where is he?" She didn't answer, just pressed the override. Captain Reed's voice came through my earpiece, taut with breath. "North conduit breach. Multiple locks failing. We're mobilizing intercept teams, but the doors are rerouting us away from target vectors. Ezra wasn't running. He was being guided. I found the technician in the node room. His eyes were open, pupils blown wide, blood from both nostrils. Still breathing, barely. His hands were folded across his chest like a child's. And humming, no melody, no words, just a resonance, low and gut-deep, the kind that made your molars ache. Marks knelt beside him, scanned vitals, then pulled back. He's in harmonic entrainment. Mimetic override. This wasn't sabotage. He was pulled. Pulled how? She looked at me then, and for the first time I saw fear that wasn't clinical. Ezra's not just emitting. He's aligning with Pup. I didn't ask how she knew. I didn't need to. The air itself felt bent. The vault was 3 levels down, behind 7 redundant locks. Or it had been. By the time I reached the viewing gallery, 3 of them were offline. The central chamber light strobed irregularly, white, then blue, then a color I couldn't name but felt in my teeth. Ezra stood just beyond the last bulkhead, one hand pressed to the glass. His eyes met mine. He didn't smile. He just waited. I touched the comm panel. Ezra. His head tilted. Then he spoke. Not in words. In image, a field of ice. Broken paw prints. Wind moaning over hollow bones. A howl that wasn't animal, but loss made sound. Pup. Behind me, Reed's team arrived, weapons drawn, breath frosting in the air. The temperature was dropping, fast. We have authorization for incineration protocol, she said. You need to clear the chamber. I stared at the vault. Pup was inside, still inert, still sealed in that translucent sarcophagus of polymer and ancient ice. But the casing was sweating. Cracks like veins had begun to spiderweb the surface. Elena, I said. Marks was at the control panel, fingers hovering. Hale signed it, she said. Failsafe authorization. This is the line. You step back. We finish it. I looked at Ezra. His hand stayed on the glass. No violence, no rage, just a stillness that radiated grief like heat. I thought about the boy in the river, the one I hadn't reached in time, the one whose mother had gripped my coat and screamed until her voice broke. I stepped forward. No, Daniel, you incinerate Pup. You don't stop Ezra. You unleash him, blind and furious. You think we've seen mimetic bleed now? You think this is the worst it gets? Marks's hand trembled just slightly. I'm not asking, I said. I'm overriding. She stared at me, then at Ezra, then at Pup. Her hand dropped. I keyed the release. The vault hissed. A single tone, clean, rising, impossibly pure, punched through the air like a tuning fork struck against the earth's spine. Pup's chest expanded and inhaled. The ice shattered in a single, crystalline detonation. Vapor roared out, wet and ancient, and impossibly cold. The lights died. Every panel blinked red, then black. Power gone. Ezra stepped forward. Pup stepped out. And the Citadel screamed. The floor cracked beneath me. Not just the concrete. The seams of the world. I felt it in my bones. A radiating fissure of sound and sense. Harmonics that didn't pass through air, but through thought. Staff dropped. Some convulsed. Some just stood, heads tilted, eyes empty. Others ran, screaming. One guard turned his weapon on himself before anyone could stop him. The hallway bent. Not physically, cognitively. Like dream logic made architecture. I could still see the walls, but they didn't line up. Nothing did. Pup moved through the chaos, without haste, without sound. Ezra followed, one hand brushing the wall like he was tracing memory. I tried to speak. My mouth worked, but no sound came. Then Pup looked at me, and I felt, I don't have words. Not really. Not pain, not fear, just recognition. I was known. Ezra touched my shoulder. The contact was gentle, and with it came images. Not projected, not forced, shared. Snow falling on black stone, a field of the dead, not rotting, waiting, eyes closed, harmonics rising from beneath the ice. A civilization buried not by time, but by choice. A song silenced. Until now. Then he was gone, both of them. The corridor behind them cracked again. The walls split. Smoke poured from vents. Somewhere, alarms still tried to sound, but the tones were warped, distorted, like someone had taught them grief. Marks grabbed my arm. Her face was bloodied. One eye swollen shut. "Evac route's collapsing," she shouted. "We have to move!" I didn't move. Not yet. I looked at the technician on the floor. Still humming, still folded. "Do you hear it?" I asked. Marks didn't answer. I turned to her. We didn't contain them. We amplified them. She pulled me toward the exit. And behind us, the Citadel fell. I don't remember the exit. I remember light, cold, smoke that tasted like salt and ash. I remember Captain Reed dragging someone with a tourniquet on their leg. I remember someone crying. Not words, just sound. I remember Pup's eyes. I woke up 2 days later in a temporary triage unit. Marks was gone, Hale was gone. The press releases said there'd been a seismic event, gas leak, structural failure. But no one believed it. Because across the frozen ridgelines, animals had begun to gather. Not attack, just wait. And at night, people heard singing. No melody, just grief. The wind carried ash and ozone across the field where they'd pitched the tents. Someone had tried to rake the soil flat, but it still bore the outlines of boot prints and collapsed scaffolding. The Citadel wasn't a crater exactly. It hadn't exploded. It had come undone, folded in on itself like paper soaked through. The hill it once occupied now looked wrong in the light, like the earth itself was avoiding the memory. I sat in a folding chair under a tarp, my coat zipped to the throat, hands bare and cold. They kept offering gloves. I kept refusing. The chill helped me feel anchored, real. Across from me, a monitor flickered with live drone feeds. Static flared every few seconds, like something kept brushing the signal. Captain Reed stood just behind the screen, arms folded tight, jaw locked in the way she got when she didn't trust anyone, including herself. "They're saying the harmonic signature was a fluke," she said without looking at me. "Feedback loop from the dampeners. Power grid fault. The review board's already drafting language." I didn't answer. She turned toward me slowly, eyes rimmed red. "Marks is still listed MIA. Her tracker pinged once, 2 hours after the collapse, 20 miles north. Then nothing." "Ezra?" I asked. Reed shook her head. "No trace, Pup either." Behind her, the monitor shivered again. For a second, it showed the inside of a gutted hallway, melted steel, frost glass coating every surface. Then back to static. "They're not gone," I said. Reed didn't ask how I knew. She just looked at me, that long, searching look she used when she was deciding whether to call in backup or trust her gut. Eventually, she glanced down at her boots. "We'll keep sweeping," she said. "But containment protocol's been reclassified. Higher clearance than either of us. Hale's pushing for a full vault reorg. Everything's under review now." "Hale always wins the review," Reed nodded. "But he's scared. You should see his hands when he thinks no one's watching." She handed me a sealed envelope. "Your clearance gets downgraded at midnight. They're cutting you loose, officially." I took the envelope. It felt too light. "There's a cabin outside Juneau," she said. "Unlisted. Mark's had it in a trust. Her emergency fallback. If she's alive, she won't go there," I said. Reed's mouth tightened. "No, but you might." She left me alone after that. I didn't open the envelope, not yet. That night, in the cot they gave me, standard issue canvas, too short for my legs, I dreamed a pup. Not moving, not snarling, just watching. Its eyes held no malice, just recognition, the way a mirror recognizes your face. The harmonic was there too, not loud, not piercing. It was underneath everything. A hum threaded through the breath of the wind, the creak of canvas, the beat of my heart. I woke with the sound still in my ears. For a moment I thought it was real. Then I realized it was coming from me, a low, involuntary exhale, shaped by memory more than voice. I sat up and reached beneath the cot. The bit of fur I'd hidden in my sock was still there, coarse, cold. Not decayed, not synthetic. It pulsed faintly with heat when I touched it, like it remembered something I didn't. I wrapped it in gauze and slipped it into a metal case, locked it. Not to hide it, just to keep it from touching too much air. The next morning, they flew me out. No debrief, no ceremony, just a seat on a chopper with 3 other evacuees, none of whom looked at each other. We all had the same expression, the kind you wear when you've seen something you can't explain, but know is still watching. Seattle was gray and wet when I landed. I took a cab south. No destination, just movement. I needed to be somewhere the wind didn't smell like scorched containment foam. I rented a room above a bait shop near the coast. The floor creaked. The radiator coughed. There was no television. That helped. Each night, I wrote. Not reports, not journal entries exactly. Just fragments, impressions. The way Ezra looked when he touched the wall. The sound of Pup's breath. The way the technician's hum had matched the harmonic, like he wasn't infected. He was remembering. I started drawing too. I'm not an artist. But the shapes came through. Spirals etched in frost. Eyes that didn't have irises, stones arranged in impossible grids. Sometimes I'd wake to find them already half-sketched on the notepad beside me. I wasn't sleeping much. Outside, the world kept pretending nothing had changed. The news was quiet. Too quiet. The Citadel collapse was still listed as a structural failure, compounded by a localized seismic event. But here and there, strange things slipped through. A small town in northern Alberta reported a series of animal die-offs. Entire packs of wolves found standing, frozen solid, eyes open. No signs of decay. Just paused. A hiking group in the Urals vanished. Their last transmission described a song they couldn't stop hearing. The audio log leaked. I listened once. Just once. The melody wasn't human. It wasn't music. It was grief, encoded. A child in Maine walked into the sea and didn't drown. They pulled her out an hour later, skin like ice, lips blue. She looked at the rescue diver and said, "He remembers." That was all. Then silence. I kept collecting these fragments, clipping articles, printing screenshots, building a mosaic of something I couldn't name. The agency sent someone, eventually, not to interrogate, just to remind me who I belonged to. "Director Hale sends his regards," the man said. He wore a wool coat and didn't shake my hand. "He'd appreciate your discretion." I haven't said a word. The man smiled. "We know. That's why you're still here." He left me a burner phone. No number. Just a soft buzz when it rang. It hasn't rung yet. Weeks passed. Then one morning, I stepped outside and found a bird. Dead but not decayed. Its eyes were open. Its body cold but not stiff. When I touched it, the harmonic surfaced again. Not from outside, from me. I buried the bird. Not because I thought it would help, just because it felt wrong to leave it exposed. That night I dreamed of Marks. She stood at the edge of a frozen lake, her coat torn, her hands bare. She was humming, the same low tone. Behind her, Pup waited. Ezra stood farther off, hands folded like a monk. He didn't smile, just watched. Marks opened her mouth. No words came, but I understood her. This isn't over. I woke with blood on my pillow. My nose, not much, just enough to remind me the body keeps score. The next day, I packed. I didn't go to the cabin near Juneau, not yet. I went east. Small towns, cold places. Places where the wind carried more than air. And I listened. I listened to the trees when they creaked at night. I listened to the silence between breaths. I listened for the harmonic. Not because I wanted to, but because I knew it would find me again. It always does. Sometimes I think about Ezra's touch, the images he shared, the civilization beneath the ice, waiting, not dead, not alive, just paused, like Pup had been. I wonder if they remember us now. I wonder what we woke up. Director Hale will bury the files. Reed will do what she can until they push her out or pull her under. Marks, if she's alive, knows what's coming. She saw it before the rest of us. That's why she pulled me from the corridor. That's why she let me choose. We didn't contain them. We didn't understand them. We just cracked the seal. And now something ancient remembers its name. The wind carries more than cold. It carries the hum. And somewhere across the ridge lines and the drowned fields, the pack is moving. Not hunting,